My name is Naomi Elise Trent. I'm 32 years old, and a few weeks ago, my parents tried to take a 14-person luxury vacation on my credit card after telling me they were keeping it tight this year. I didn't yell, I didn't call, I didn't ask why. I just canceled the whole thing while they were already at the airport. If you want to understand how I got there, you have to understand what kind of family they are and what kind of idiot I've been for most of my adult life. A month before all this, I got promoted at work. It wasn't CEO money, but it was a real jump. Bigger title, bigger responsibilities, bigger paycheck. I lead product implementation for a software company, which mostly means I live in spreadsheets and fire drills. I wasn't planning on making a big announcement. I told a few close friends, treated myself to a good bottle of wine, and went back to work. Then came my cousin Rebecca's birthday. We were all crammed into my Aunt Melissa's house, the same place where every family argument, gossip session, and passive-aggressive intervention had happened since I was a kid. Someone turned the music down just enough that you could hear the clink of forks and the hum of small talk. I was in the kitchen stacking plates when my Uncle Jeff wandered over. "So, Naomi," he said, swaying slightly with a beer in his hand, "how's work? Still doing computer stuff?" "Something like that," I said. "I got a promotion, actually." I said it casually, but in this family information spreads faster than spilled wine. By dessert, everyone knew. My mother hugged me and told me how proud she was, how I'd really made it now. My dad slapped me on the back just a little too hard and said, "So are you finally ready to contribute more?" I knew exactly what that meant. In our family, contribute never means emotional support or time. It means swipe your card and shut up about it. I cut it off before it had a chance to grow legs. "I'm not doing the family trip this summer," I told them. "I need some time to recharge. Might travel alone, maybe nowhere at all." For a split second, my mom's smile faltered. Then she recovered. "That's okay," she said, patting my arm. "We'll be saving money this year anyway." The way she said it stuck with me. The tone, the finality. Saving money. I just didn't realize she meant theirs, not mine. I should mention something. My parents are not poor. They're not rich either, but they've always managed to live beyond what they can comfortably afford. My dad runs a consulting business that has more debts than clients. My mom runs the emotional economy. She keeps everyone orbiting, always a crisis to fix, a favor to owe, a secret to keep. I've always been the stable one. Decent job, careful with money, good credit score, the one who co-signs, the one who lends, the one who steps in when someone is about to be evicted or just needs a little help this month. It's a role I didn't audition for, but they cast me anyway. 3 days after Rebecca's party, I woke up to an alert from my credit card company. $4,039.24 charged at a luxury travel agency. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then another charge hit. Meals, villa amenities, group excursions. I logged in to see the full breakdown. 7 nights in Cancun, 14 guests, private chef, snorkeling tour, boat day. I scrolled through the names on the itinerary. My parents, my sister Courtney, Aunt Melissa, Uncle Jeff, Cousin Rebecca, Cousin Leah, a couple of hang-on relatives, 14 people. Not one of them was me. My stomach went cold. I thought back to the party, to my wallet left on the kitchen counter while I took the trash out, to how long I was away from it. They didn't steal my card. They memorized it, took photos, waited a few days, called a travel agent and built themselves a dream vacation on top of my promotion. They assumed I wouldn't catch it until they were already on the beach, if I caught it at all. They assumed wrong. I didn't call my mom to ask what she was thinking. I didn't ask my dad how this could happen. Instead, I sat down at my kitchen table, opened in my laptop, and went to war in 3 clicks. Dispute, dispute, dispute. I flagged every single transaction, locked the travel account, changed my passwords, and turned off international usage on that card. Then I called the travel agency and told them very calmly that the charges were fraudulent and no one had permission to use my card. After that, I called the villa directly. "Hi," I said. "I just wanted to let you know that a reservation under my card is being disputed as fraud. I thought you'd want to be aware in case anyone tries to check in." The woman on the other end was surprisingly sympathetic. "We'll note it," she said. "Thank you for letting us know." I clicked log out and exhaled. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Dad, our boarding passes have been rejected. We're being held up by airport security. What the hell is going on?" I could picture them perfectly. Straw hats, matching luggage, sunglasses indoors, Courtney already taking photos for Instagram, everyone humming with entitlement, and then the airline staff telling them their tickets aren't valid anymore. The villa canceled, the card declined. I typed slowly. Maybe try tightening the guest list. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off, put it face down on the nightstand, and went to bed early. I slept like a stone. The next morning, when I turned my phone back on, the screen lit up like a siren. 15 missed calls, all from the same number. I didn't recognize it. When the voicemail icon popped up, I listened. "Ms. Trent," a clipped voice said, "this is Richard Coleman, legal counsel for your father. We've been asked to reach out regarding a matter of property and familial obligation. Please return my call as soon as possible." I almost laughed. Of course he'd lawyer up before he called his own daughter. I waited an hour, made coffee, answered a few work emails, then finally dialed back. "Ms. Trent," the lawyer said, "your father is seeking the return of his vehicle." "His vehicle?" I repeated. "The car he provided you 3 years ago," he said. "Given the recent breakdown of trust and lack of familial reciprocity, he would like it returned immediately. It was never formally gifted. It was a loan." I could practically hear my father dictating the phrases in the background. Breakdown of trust, lack of reciprocity, not "we stole from you," not "we tried to vacation off your back," just carefully chosen legal words to make me sound ungrateful. "Fine," I said. "He can have the car." There was a pause. Sorry? "I'll leave the keys in their mailbox and park it in front of the house," I said. "Tonight, I'm done." He started to say something else, but I hung up. They thought they'd won something that day. They had no idea the real trip was just beginning. I drove the car back to my parents' house that evening. It was the same silver sedan my dad had given me 3 years ago, back when my own car died and I couldn't afford a replacement. At the time, he'd framed it like a generous gesture. "I was just going to trade it in," he'd said. "You need it more than the dealership does." No talk of loans, no contracts, no conditions beyond the usual, unspoken one. Stay useful. When I pulled up to the curb, the house was dark. One porch light on, one window glowing faintly with the blue light of a television. I parked in front, hands steady on the wheel. The car still smelled like my life. Coffee cups, old receipts, the faint trace of the air freshener I'd clipped to the vent. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle. This used to feel like home. Now it felt like a crime scene I'd finally walked away from. I dropped the keys into their mailbox, exactly like I told the lawyer I would. No note, no explanation, no dramatic goodbye. Then I walked back down the driveway, past the hedges I used to help trim as a teenager, past the window where I once did homework under my mom's watchful eye, and I got into the rideshare car I'd ordered from the corner. I didn't look back. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from Courtney. "Seriously? You just gave it back? Just to be dramatic? Grow up, Naomi." Her name had been on the Cancun itinerary. She knew exactly what they'd done. She knew exactly where that money was coming from. And she still thought I was the problem. I didn't reply. She sent another one an hour later. "You're punishing everyone because you can't take a joke. It was a vacation, not a crime." I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and went back to my work call. For almost a week, things were quiet, eerily quiet. No calls from my parents, no messages from the lawyer, no fresh guilt bombs from Mom in the form of Bible verses or inspirational quotes about forgiveness. Then the email from the DMV arrived. Subject line, "Notice of traffic violation." I opened it, already feeling the edge of dread. 30 miles per hour over the speed limit, residential zone, automatic speed camera. A grainy, black and white photo was attached. The car was unmistakable. Same license plate, same dent on the rear bumper. The driver was dead center in the frame. My father. Same gray hoodie he always wore. Mouth set in a hard line, eyes narrowed at some unseen frustration on the road. The ticket was addressed to me, of course. The registration was still in my name. The car had only been back in his possession for 3 days when he decided to test gravity and consequences at the same time. I checked the date. The violation had happened 3 days after I dropped the car off. I checked my emails and found the policy cancellation from my insurance company. Time-stamped the same night I left the keys. I'd pulled the policy because I wanted the line clean between us. Now it was something better than clean. It was leverage. I called the DMV and filed a statement of non-ownership. Sent them everything. The email from his lawyer demanding the car back, my response about dropping it at their house, the time-stamped confirmation of the insurance cancellation. I even attached a screenshot of Courtney's mocking text about me giving away the car just to be dramatic. Within 48 hours, I received a follow-up. The ticket had been reassigned, and with no proof of insurance on file, the DMV had flagged the plates. The next time that car got pulled over or ran a light, it would be eligible for impound. That wasn't vengeance. That was gravity doing what it does best. It would have been easy to pretend that was enough, that the universe had taken over and I could step back. But the truth was, what I was watching wasn't karma. It was fallout. 2 weeks after the vacation, that wasn't. My friend Sam from a local credit union called me on his lunch break. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, "but your dad just tried to take out a personal loan. It didn't go through. His credit score tanked under 600. I could picture my dad sitting in some bland office, sweating under fluorescent lights, while someone behind a desk politely told him that his history of missed payments and maxed cards were finally catching up. 3 days after that, Rebecca's Instagram went dark. For Rebecca, that was practically a natural disaster. She posted daily, brunches, workouts, engagement ring close-ups, quotes about soulmates layered over pictures of sunsets. Curiosity nudged me toward Facebook, where her profile still showed public posts. Her engagement was postponed, which in Rebecca language meant canceled. The comments were a mess of vague well wishes and drama, no details, just a lot of talk about needing to work on ourselves and timing. My Aunt Melissa, who'd led the chorus of Naomi is selfish after the airport disaster, suddenly went quiet online. A week later, I heard why. Aunt Melissa had been living rent-free in one of my grandfather's old duplexes for years. It was an unspoken arrangement, their version of taking care of each other. What she didn't know, what my dad had never told her, was that he'd used that duplex as collateral for one of his business loans 2 years ago. The bank had foreclosed. The notice came taped to her door, bright and official. She crashed on Courtney's couch the same night. Courtney's passive-aggressive Instagram story, just a photo of 2 wine glasses and the caption, "Some people forget who took care of them," told me everything I needed to know. I hadn't lifted a finger. They were all sinking under the weight of choices they'd made long before I ever clicked dispute. But I wasn't naive. I knew they still thought this was a temporary storm, something they could ride out with enough denial and blame. Deep in their bones, they believed I'd fold. I always had. I'd apologize to keep the peace. I'd take a little more on my shoulders. I'd swallow the resentment and call it love. They didn't realize something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't carrying anything for them anymore, and I was done playing defense. The thing my family had never understood is that I'm not impulsive. I don't blow up. I don't throw things. I don't scream. I plan. I document. For years, I'd been quietly keeping a mental and then literal list. Not just of every time they'd wronged me. That would have been simple. No, I kept track of information. Weak points. Secrets they whispered when drunk. Messages they sent at 2 a.m. Venmo descriptions that accidentally said too much. Addresses. Side deals. The little fractures in their lives they never thought anyone would notice. I never intended to use it. At least that's what I told myself. Until they stole a vacation with 14 guests and no invitation for me. I opened a note on my phone labeled simply, leverage. Names stared back at me. Dad, Mom, Courtney, Aunt Melissa, Uncle Jeff. Next to each name, a few bullet points. Debts, unpaid favors, lies, old receipts. My eyes settled on one in particular, Uncle Jeff. 3 years ago, he'd called me in the middle of the night, whispering into the phone like someone was listening. "My life is falling apart, Naomi," he'd said. "She left, took everything. I'm behind on rent. I just need $2,000 to get through the month. I swear, I'll pay you back by June." I'd sent it, of course I had. June came and went. No repayment, no mention. Months later, I'd stumbled across an email thread he'd accidentally included me on and realized the money hadn't gone to a landlord. It had gone to a man named Lenny, who ran a pawn shop 2 towns over and did a little unlicensed lending on the side. Uncle Jeff had never repaid that either. I stared at his name on my list, then at all the others. They'd treated me like an outsider my entire life, but expected me to fund the family from the sidelines. If they wanted me on the outside, I was going to show them what that really looked like. I circled Uncle Jeff's name. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel tired. I felt ready. I didn't start with rage. I didn't start with revenge. I started with the truth. Quiet, sharp, undeniable truth. Because in my family, the truth was always the first thing to get buried under guilt, excuses, and whatever story made them look like the victim. Uncle Jeff was the first name I circled. He'd always been the type to laugh too loudly at other people's misfortunes and too softly at his own. 3 years ago, he'd called me in a panic after his wife ran off with someone she'd met online. He claimed she'd ruined him financially, left him unable to pay rent, and begged me for help. "I'll pay you back by June," he'd promised. June came and went like any other month, unremarkable, unpaid. And then I found out the money never went to rent. It went to Lenny. Yes, that Lenny. The one who ran a pawn shop that operated legally by day and illegally by night. Jeff had owed him, and apparently I was the easiest debt he could transfer. Back then I let it slide because confronting him meant confronting the entire family, and I wasn't strong enough to go against the group, but things were different now. Now I wasn't part of the group. So I made my first move. Not a scream, not a threat, not a social media blast. Just an anonymous tip to his HR department. Concerning discrepancies on his background check, I wrote, voice measured, possible DUI history and false address on file. Nothing untrue, nothing exaggerated, just the truth they'd ignored for years. 3 days later, Uncle Jeff was placed on administrative leave. My Aunt Melissa posted a cryptic Facebook status about people who smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. She didn't tag anyone, but she didn't have to. The comment section filled with cousins and family friends offering sympathy. I wasn't one of them. Because while they were publicly grieving Jeff's unfair treatment, disaster was already ricocheting through the family like falling dominoes. Courtney, my sister, who had called me dramatic, immature, and obsessed with control after I returned the car they'd tried to reclaim. Courtney, who'd been living in a downtown luxury apartment her part-time influencer income could not possibly cover. I'd known for a while that Dad had co-signed her lease, which was impressive because Dad had grown allergic to responsibility years ago, but desperation makes him reckless. So I checked something. The courthouse website. There it was, a civil suit filed by the apartment management company. 3 months past due. Both Courtney and Dad listed. I almost felt sorry for her, almost, until I remembered she was one of the gleeful names on the Cancun Villa reservation. So I made my second move. I contacted the collections agency that had once slapped my credit report 2 years back because Courtney missed a phone payment on a plan I made the mistake of co-signing in college. I had documented everything from that ordeal, screenshots, emails, even Courtney's old messages bragging about getting free money from brands. So I sent an anonymous message. She may be hiding unreported income through sponsorship gifts and cash apps. Public info. Check her socials. I attached screenshots. 2 days later, Courtney got served live on Instagram. Someone screen recorded it, of course. She was mid-lip gloss application when a man knocked on her door, handed her a manila envelope, and walked away. Her face dropped. The live ended. I watched it twice. Not for satisfaction, for confirmation. They were unraveling from the inside. He didn't call me directly. He never does anything directly when he thinks he can manipulate his way through the edges. Instead, he crafted a fake LinkedIn recruiter account and reached out to my coworker Josh, asking questions, fishing for problems, trying to plant doubt. Josh is no idiot. He screenshotted the whole exchange, sent it to me, then replied publicly. This behavior is exactly why I don't mix family with business. Dad didn't realize Josh is the type of person who will swing back harder when you poke him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Years ago, I helped a local reporter with information on a tax fraud story. Nothing big. Just something she needed clarification on. She owed me a favor and never forgot it. So I called her. I have something you should look into, I said. Small business grants from the pandemic. People who received funds and didn't deliver what they promised. She checked the public records. Guess whose name she found? My father's consulting firm. $12,000 in relief funds to expand his online presence. Except his online presence was non-existent. No website, no filings, no tax documentation. The article was short, factual, devastating. Comment sections did the rest. Within 48 hours, Dad's business phone line went dead. Mom tried the religion route, posting a Bible verse. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For once, I agreed completely. Aunt Melissa temporarily moved into Courtney's living room, which was rapidly losing its luxury glow under 2 evictions and 1 public notice. Rebecca's engagement remained postponed, which in our family was code for completely obliterated. Uncle Jeff stopped posting entirely, and through all of it, I kept quiet, because I hadn't actually done much, not compared to them. They were reaping what they sowed. All I'd done was remove the walls they used to hide behind. I woke up one morning to a voicemail from a lawyer I hadn't heard from in months, my grandfather's. He said there was an inheritance transfer requiring my signature. My grandfather had passed away a year earlier, and everyone assumed Aunt Melissa would inherit his duplex. She'd lived there for years, rent-free, under the illusion that occupancy equals ownership. But apparently Grandpa had updated the will 6 months before he died. He left the duplex to me. Me, the only one who ever showed up for him without asking for something. I called back. The paperwork was real. Ownership transferred within a week. Aunt Melissa had no idea. 3 days later, I listed the duplex as available for rent. I didn't make a big announcement. I didn't send a message. But I knew the moment she found out. Because Courtney sent me a voice message that sounded like someone being exorcised. How could you do this? You're making Mom homeless. No, I wasn't. Life had made her homeless. Choices had made her homeless. I'd simply stopped cushioning the fall. But even as I updated the listing, something in my chest tightened. Not guilt, not hesitation. Something else. A sense that the story wasn't done unraveling. And I was right, because my next visitor wasn't family at all. He was a CPA, a former IRS investigator. And he walked into my life carrying a thick folder that would change everything I thought I knew about betrayal. The man introduced himself as Brian Keller, a CPA who used to work for the IRS. He stood in the doorway of the duplex I'd just inherited, wearing a gray button-down and the kind of expression accountants get when they've uncovered something they can't ignore. He didn't look like someone interested in renting property. His posture was too stiff, his eyes too sharp. "Ms. Trent?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "You're here about the duplex?" He shook his head. "Not exactly. I need to talk to you about something your family's been involved in." My stomach tightened. When someone opens a sentence with "your family" and "involved," nothing good follows. We sat in the small, empty living room. No furniture, no background noise, just the hum of the refrigerator I'd plugged back in and the faint buzz of my anxiety. Brian set a thick folder on the coffee table. It looked heavy in the way truth is heavy. "I've been working a case indirectly connected to your father," he began. "After that small news article ran about his business grant, someone filed a fraud tip. Normally those go nowhere, but the details were specific." A cold shiver ran up my arms. "Someone filed a tip on him?" "Yes," he said, and it opened up more questions. He flipped open the folder. Inside were documents, spreadsheets, printouts, photocopies, financial breadcrumbs, each one stained with my father's fingerprints. Brian pointed to a line on one page. "Your father received a $12,000 pandemic relief grant," he said. "He claimed it was for building digital infrastructure for his consulting firm." I raised an eyebrow. "He doesn't even have a website." "Exactly," Brian said. "The IRS noticed that too. When they dug deeper, they found misreported income, fake 1099s, and phantom employees." I sat back. "So he's being investigated?" "He already is," Brian said, "but that's not why I'm here." He slid another document toward me, this one with my name printed in bold. My breath caught. "What is that?" "A trust," he said. "One your grandfather left for you." I blinked. "My grandpa left me a trust?" Brian nodded. $25,000. "It was created when you turned 18. The terms stated it would be released to you at age 25. I felt the room tilt. 25. That was the year I worked night shifts, skipped meals, pawned half my stuff so I could afford rent on my apartment. "Why didn't I know about it?" I whispered. Brian slid a signature page into view. "Because in 2019, it was closed." Closed? The word barely left my mouth. "Emptied," he clarified. "Withdrawn in segments. Merged through an account tied to your father's business. The documents authorizing it." He tapped the signature line. "That's not your signature." My pulse roared in my ears. I stared at the forged shape of my name, crooked in the wrong places, slanted like someone was copying a photocopy. "He forged this?" I asked, voice shaking. Brian nodded slowly. "Based on all evidence, yes." I pressed my hands to my face, inhaling through my palms. While I starved through my 20s, while I panicked over overdue bills, while I cried on my bathroom floor over a medical copay, while I was breaking myself to survive, there had been $25,000 waiting for me. And he stole it. Not just money. Time, safety, possibility, stability, my 20s. I dropped my hands and stared at Brian. "What happens next?" He closed the folder. "The report is nearly complete. Agencies will pursue repayment. Criminal charges are possible. You won't need to press anything yourself. This has gone beyond that." I nodded, numb. Brian stood to leave, but paused. Ms. Trent, none of this is your fault. You didn't miss the signs. They hid them. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I didn't. I just nodded again. After he left, I locked the duplex door and leaned against it, letting the weight of the truth pin me upright. My father hadn't just stolen a vacation or a car or a credit line. He'd stolen years of my life. And he'd done it with the same confidence he used to take my wallet off the counter. Because he believed something that had always been true, until now, that I wouldn't fight back. My phone buzzed at 1:13 a.m. An unknown number. One picture. A photo of the duplex, taken from inside a car, at night, my for rent sign glowing under the porch light. I frowned. Before I could respond, another text came in. This one wasn't a photo. It was a screenshot, a bank withdrawal. 2019. 5 figures. The same first 4 digits Brian showed me on the trust transfer. Someone was watching. Someone knew. Someone wanted me to know that they knew. I tried calling the number, straight to voicemail. Burner. I didn't sleep. Every shadow in my room felt like a warning. Not fear, just the awareness that something bigger had been set in motion. Someone else was digging into the past. Someone with access to things I hadn't even found yet. And they weren't threatening me. They were telling me, "You're not finished. And you're not the only one with something to lose." It's been 4 months since that last message, the one that came from a burner phone with no name, just a photo of my duplex at night and a screenshot of the trust withdrawal from 2019. I never figured out who sent it. The number disconnected a week later, leaving behind nothing but questions I couldn't chase and warnings I couldn't ignore. But the truth is, I didn't need to know who sent it, because by then, everything else had already begun to fall apart. A week after the message, I woke to an email from Brian. No long introduction, no paragraphs, just a single attached PDF and 7 words in the body. "You won't need to press charges. They're already moving." I opened the document, the final draft of his report. Everything was there, line by line, dollar by dollar, lie by lie. Tax fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, misappropriated funds, phantom employees, the stolen trust, the fake filings, accounts opened under my information. All of it tied back to one person, my father. The report had already been submitted to the IRS and 2 other federal agencies. A quiet, clinical investigation. No yelling, no doorstep confrontations, no dramatic knocks at midnight. Just paperwork, fingerprints, and timelines. The fallout was immediate and eerily silent. 3 days after Brian's email, my father's consulting firm website vanished. The domain expired. His business number was disconnected. The Facebook page he updated every Sunday with motivational quotes turned into a 404 error. Then his lawyer, the one who once called me 15 times in a row, quit. Apparently, my father hadn't paid him in 2 months. I shouldn't have felt satisfied, but I did. Courtney's eviction happened next. Her fancy downtown apartment, the one she bragged about endlessly, the one she filmed hair tutorials in, the one she pretended she paid for with brand partnerships, ended up padlocked by the building management. She went live on Instagram that morning, crying about haters and fake friends, but she didn't mention the truth. After all, the truth had her and Dad's names on a court filing. She moved back to my parents' house the same night. Someone sent me a photo of the foreclosure notice taped to their lawn a few days later. Aunt Melissa sent me a message on Facebook. Not the usual rage, not denial, not guilt-tripping. Just 5 words. I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't reply, because it wasn't about it going too far. It was about them never expecting consequences at all. Uncle Jeff lost his job. A month after he was placed on administrative leave, he was officially terminated. Policy violation, the public notice said. And for once, the official story was nicer than the truth. The man who once bragged about being the backbone of his department was suddenly home every day, posting vague motivational quotes that withered under the weight of hypocrisy. I didn't reach out. He didn't either. Good. Some doors were meant to stay shut. After inheriting the duplex from my grandfather, I thought I would rent it out, get tenants, make income, move on. But when everything with my father resurfaced, when the trust fund theft came to light, something inside me shifted. I changed the locks, painted every room myself, cleaned it until it didn't smell like Aunt Melissa's candle hoard anymore, and then I left it empty. Some places aren't meant to be lived in. Some places are meant to stand as reminders of the truth. On some evenings, I'd sit on the porch, listening to the quiet of the street. It was the kind of silence I'd never had growing up. A peaceful silence, the kind that doesn't demand anything from you. Peace has a sound, and this was it. Brian was honest with me. I might never see the full $25,000 again. Maybe a fraction, maybe none. Oddly, I wasn't angry, because it was no longer about the money. It was about the revelation. And once I saw that truth, I couldn't unsee it. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Real paper, handwritten. No drama in the envelope, just sincerity. It was from Leah, my quiet cousin, the only one who never participated in the mob mentality. She wrote, I left the family group chat. I cut off contact. I started therapy. Watching what happened made me realize how deep this poison goes. You were the only one who walked away and didn't come back. I'm trying to do that now, too. I read it twice. For the first time in a long time, I felt something other than tension in my chest. Not joy, not triumph, just release. Not because they surrendered, not because they apologized, not because I won, but because I stopped fighting. I stepped out of the battlefield, closed the door behind me, walked toward a life that didn't revolve around putting out fires I didn't start. The truth was simple. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped shielding them from the consequences of who they'd always been. And once I stopped protecting them, their whole world fell apart on its own. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not plotting. I'm not waiting for the next attack. It's over.